Hello and welcome to episode 53 of Nintendo Therapy, a show about the latest Nintendo news and rumors, as well as a celebration of all things Nintendo. My name is Kevin, and with me this week in the library of Nintendo 64 Congress to talk about expansion packs, rumble packs, and Pac-Man clones is Harrison.
I don't think I ever had a Rumble Pack. Did you have one when
I had
it
an
came out?
I had an off-brand Rumble pack that had a memory card, like it was a dual. It was 2-in-1. It was a memory card and a Rumble pack.
Yeah, I never had it. Like the only accessory that I remember is of course like the Game Boy one, like the one that you needed for Pokemon Stadium or or whatever.
I bought that, and because I bought that for Perfect Dark because they like heavily promoted in magazines at the time that Perfect Dark was going to be able to link up with the Game Boy camera, and you're going to be able to do all these cool things like put your faces in the game and stuff, which is a feature they had that worked, and they took it out of the game after, if I remember correctly, it was after Columbine, but it might have just been using good common sense. um, but anyway, point is, I bought the accessory because magazines kept saying it was going to have this feature, and then I never used it for anything. Because I was done with Pokemon by the time Stadium came around, and I don't think I ever used the accessory.
God, that sounds like the perfect like Nintendo thing that like Nintendo would do. And that could have been really cool, like if they would have figured out a way to incorporate the camera
I think you
in.
can see online, like the feature worked. They like specifically took it out because they thought it was in bad taste to shoot your friends.
Yeah. Well, it would have been cool if they could have used it as like a scope or something, or like if you could have like you even just had it, like if you could just had it on your TV screen. I would have thought that was like the coolest thing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
If you could have done that. But yeah, that was not the end of being of like the Game Boy, hooking your Game Boy up to your main console accessory, because we had it with Game Boy Advance, we had it
Mm-hmm.
with the GameCube.
I
Well, we
remember
had.
thinking it was weird that you couldn't play Game Boy games on your TV with it. Like, I thought that should have been a feature of it. Is like you can use your Nintendo. It would be like the Super Game Boy for the Nintendo 64.
From being able to do it from your controller. That would have been cool. There was never an accessory like Japan or anything where it was like the GameCube, where
No.
you couldn't hook it up to your actual console. No, I didn't think so. I used, we've talked on here. I used that a lot when we had it on GameCube. What were we talking about?
Well, this
Welcome back,
week
guys.
one thing I wanted to talk about, it's kind of a bummer that Sean isn't here because he sort of inspired this thought in my head where I think it was last week or the week before he mentioned that, like, I don't know what's left. He said something like, there's not a lot left to come to the Nintendo 64 section of Switch Online. And I've been thinking about it ever since he said that, because like he's like right and he's wrong, and like I wish he was here to talk to about this because it's like the main thing I wanted to talk about this week. So like there's not a lot of like the, I don't know if you'd use the term AAA, or like there's not a lot of the S tier games left. He's right about that.
Hmm.
But there's still a ton of stuff that I think potentially could show up. And at the same time, like a lot of these games I used to think were impossible for the service, but then they added GoldenEye and Jet Force Gemini and Harvest Moon 64. And when that happened, I learned like anything's possible, because specifically Harvest Moon 64, it really surprised me because they like, there was an article where they asked HAL Laboratories about it, and because it's like a cult hit, and they said it wasn't possible to come to Switch Online. And I always wondered what they meant by that. And I assumed it was because I don't know if you've ever tried playing Harvest Moon 64 through like emulation, playing like a ROM or something, but it's one of those games that notoriously does not work. And I always thought, like, because that game has so many glitches and errors, I wonder if it was just like programmed badly and that's why it couldn't come to the service. But then eventually it did come to the service. So, yeah, anything's possible.
That's a big surprise, and I wonder if it is anything, because that was kind of the, you made the list, and that was sort of the thought experiment that I went through with this, is that, yeah, Harvest Moon was a big surprise, but I was thinking as far as developers mainly, um, which it basically is anything possible when you look at the N64 library, which is roughly, I'm gonna round up and say 400 games roughly, including everything, like
Yeah, I think that's
everything
even
in.
rounding kind of high unless you're including Japanese only titles. Because I think North
The,
America is close to like, I think it's like 290 for North
so
America.
so the most accurate number that I found was about 380, with 85 games being exclusives to Japan. So North America roughly got somewhere around, like, I'll say like 300, like a little
Yeah,
less,
I
like
think it's like
like
290 something. I can't remember the
yeah,
specific number, but it's almost 300.
yeah. And like, do you remember at the time, you were a bit older than me too? Did you feel like during this era, were you like waiting around sometimes? Did it ever
Not
feel that way?
really. I think about this a lot actually, is like it was the perfect era because it gave, I think this is why people have a lot of affinity for the games they played on the Nintendo 64, is it wasn't like there was a new game every week. It was like you got to focus on your game when you bought it. There's also a weird fact that like a good percentage of the library, it's like 20 games came out on the same day. That, like, it's October 31st. I'm gonna get the year wrong. I think 1999. Um, it's a Halloween, whatever it is, and October 31st of some year, like 20 Nintendo 64 games came out. So it's weird that they all came out on that one day. But um, yeah, I don't remember because I that was back in the heyday of my Nintendo Power subscription, and I just remember there was always a game I was playing, and there was always a game I was looking forward to, and it was like the perfect balance between the two. And I think about that a lot because I feel like today you you get a game and then you barely get to enjoy it before life gives you, I mean, you already, before you even get the game, you already have like two other games you're looking forward to. You know what I mean? It's like you never get to just fully absorb that game.
Hmm. Yeah, I rarely, like I guess if you look at 2023, um, I mean, there might have been only one game where I like that was new, that came out, that I played through completely, that I completed, and that was it. Um, and then there were some other games that I played, that some new games that I played that I was excited about. I I I just couldn't really remember for myself. And like, when I look at like numbers of, like, especially like, not just GameCube, because GameCube sold in comparison pretty bad, but when you look in totality of the console wars, and like how well PS2, GameCube, Xbox did in the first year, it sure doesn't seem like anyone was like grasping at this generation when the new one came around. So so that's that's kind of all. We said in our 50th episode that, like, I felt like there's too much sentiment at time, and then there's like too much like not wanting to move forward at times, and that's just any kind of, that's just like any kind of art, really. uh
Yeah.
but 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 yeah, I mean, for a system that had only 300 games in America compared to PlayStation, which had over 7,000. Um, there sure are a lot of really, really good games that came out. Um, but yeah, I guess going back, like, do you think do you actually think anything is possible, or are there certain games, certain developers that just not do not have the right relationship with Nintendo?
Well, I did separate it into three categories. So to me, we can go through. This is what led to this segment here. Sean saying there's not a lot left. I started considering everything that is left. And to me, these are the games that are still left in the discussion. So this we're not just going to list every single game that's not on here because there's a lot of obscure stuff that nobody cares about. But like everything not on this list is either already on the service or so obscure nobody is thinking about that game. Uh, so that stuff might show up on the service, but nobody's going to care. Like, the service has added random games before. Um, but like, for example, we're not going to waste time talking about Automobili Lamborghini. Like that might show up, it might not. Nobody cares about Automobili Lamborghini.
Right.
So, uh,
And and just to be clear, at the time of this recording, there are 29 games currently on the online service. Um,
yes. And I did check to make sure none of these, like, I didn't make a mistake. And unless
I
I'm
think you're
wrong
good.
again,
I think
none
you're
of these
good.
are on there. Okay.
I think you're okay, because I did the same thing and then I took it off. I think you're fine.
All right. So,
We're not experts here.
yeah. So I got three categories here. The games that most likely are going to show up, like it's pretty much like money. Like it's pretty guaranteed that these games are going to show up. I'm pretty sure they are. These are my opinion, but yeah. And then I have games. The biggest part of the list is games that might show up, might not. Again, nothing's impossible, except the last part of the list is games that I do think it's not necessarily impossible, but highly unlikely that these games will show up on the service. So we can start going through here. So the most likely games to me, I made a list of 8, is Donkey Kong 64, Banjo Tooie, Glover, Diddy Kong Racing, Mischief Makers, Blast Corps, Quest 64, and Cruisin' USA.
Okay,
So we can start talking about these. Yeah.
so I have to know, if you had to bump one of these off, which one would it be? Because yeah, what do you think?
I think I would bump Mischief Makers off just because it's a cult classic, but it didn't have a lot of success, and I don't really know much about the publisher. I don't know. I didn't bother looking that up, and it just seems like it would get added for its cult status, but I could also see it not getting added for the fact that it's obscure. Glover, I think, is probably going to show up just because that game bombed so hard. They might want him like it. It was reviewed well, but it didn't sell. In fact, if I remember correctly, that was like there's some behind the scenes story about Glover where they like ordered the sequel before the game was even released, and they produced too many copies of the game, so it was never going to be able to make its money back, and then they had to cancel the sequel. There's some story like, I don't know. They behind the scenes basically made it so Glover could never succeed. But it was apparently like a decent game. It's not like going to change your life, but I've never played it. But yeah, I don't know. It's got a reputation. I think Glover's Banjo Tooie is another one that to me that I'm like, that's a no brainer. You've got Banjo Kazooie on the service. They're talking about making a new Banjo game soon. They might do it just to promote that. And Donkey Kong 64, just because even though it's a rare game, Nintendo, loves its Donkey Kong. So I think those are the most likely is Donkey Kong, Banjo, and I'll say Blast Core is very likely too.
I most likely I'm gonna say Donkey Kong 64. I think Cruisin' USA is gonna be on there at some point. I mean, like
Yeah,
we. I mean, I don't see a problem. I don't see a problem with us like having like them adding like Diddy Kong Racing and then like Cruisin' USA like at the same like they could
I
do it at the
agree.
same time. I don't think it would. I don't even think it would matter.
That
But
totally
you're
seems like one of those ones that would come in an update with like 5 games added to the service, and like one of them that's the Nintendo 64 game they add that week.
okay. I started by asking Kevin a question. Kevin has talked a little bit about 7 of 8 of these games and has clearly skipped over one of these that he doesn't. You really think Quest 64 is going to come to this service?
I would like it
You're gonna.
to,
I would like it
especially
to.
especially with its cult, status and everything. And it's it's like I don't know. It's got a lot of people that still talk about it, and it gets brought up constantly as the first RPG the system had. I th- I think there's a good chance that it could come. I don't know. If it's not in the most likely category, it definitely belongs in the maybe. It's not one of those ones where I could see a reason that it's like, no, there's no shot Quest 64 is coming.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is the one that I would be moving down.
Okay.
Because like if, well, first off, if it came out, I would be really excited about it. But I just don't know if wants to actually do anything. Like, do they want to do anything with any of these characters? Like, even just do they want to add them to like Mario Kart or something? Like, just like whatever it might be. But oh my god, like okay, Nintendo, if you are going to put this game on the service, please announce it during a direct so I can watch Twitter just explode. Um, I because yeah, it does have a cult following, and it would just be hilarious to see the reactions of. Well, not only does it have a cult following, but it also has people who like for some reason like really hate the game like passionately like why do you like this game like just for some reason yeah I think most likely I'm gonna go Donkey Kong 64 yeah and I guess last I would say when I look at the games that we already have like Donkey Kong 64 might be the only one where it's like, man, this is like way, way up there because like, yeah, we got all the Mario games and we got like the 2 Zelda games and we have I think we have almost all the Pokemon games. So like there's nothing really even doing this, nothing really stands out too much.
Diddy Kong Racing, I would be surprised also. That's why I have that in this category. I'd be surprised if they don't add that at some point because I belong to a lot of Nintendo groups just to like stay up to date for this podcast on like Facebook and stuff. And I don't think there's a day that goes by without somebody making a thread about Diddy Kong Racing and how they want it on the service. So, also, Nintendo, you need to market your Switch Online service better because at the same time that I'm in these groups seeing that, I also see people who have no idea Switch Online exists. Every day I see a post that's like, did they ever release Super Mario World for the Switch? And it's like people have to explain to them what Switch Online is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was doing I was doing something similar yesterday where I was like on my list I had like oh yeah like Excite Bite 64 that would be good and I was like oh yeah like that's already on the server or like way what was the other one like Wave Race 64 I was like oh yeah
Mhm.
that one's also on the
Yeah, I
service
actually
too
thought that a few times too. I forget it's on there.
so even like yeah, even like someone like me, like I consider myself more locked in than like average, and I forget quite a few of these games, even some that I might play.
So let's head on over to the maybe pile. So these are things that maybe will show up on the service, but have kind of reasons I think might not, but also, like I said at the beginning of this, you never know. So, that being said, I'll kick it off with Perfect Dark. Obviously, it's a rare game, and we already have GoldenEye, so maybe, maybe not. Super Smash Brothers. Nintendo could either be really cool and put it on there, or they could be like, no, we're protecting this IP and we want limited access to it. Mega Man 64, same thing. Lego Racers, it's a license thing. Rocket Robot on Wheels, which is a pretty decent game by the people who went on to make Ratchet and Clank. Conker's Bad Fur Day, for obvious reasons, is a maybe. Earthworm Jim 3D, Guardian Legends has a cult following. There's two games featuring the character of Guillamon that I know have like a big following that I never really got into. Gex Enter the Gecko, Gex 3 Deep Cover Gecko, Paperboy 64, Castlevania 64, Castlevania Legacy of Darkness, Beetle Adventure Racing has a big following. You've got the Bomberman trilogy, which is one I had to look up. I was like, isn't that on Switch Online? But it's not yet. So Bomberman 64, I thought was on there already. That would be a nice addition. You got Bomberman 64 Second Attack and Bomberman Hero. You've got Buck Bumble. You've got Chameleon Twist. You've got Chameleon Twist 2. You've got Snowboard Kids. You've got Snowboard Kids 2. Star Wars Rogue Squadron. Episode 1 Battle for Naboo. Shadows of the Empire, which is probably the most likely of the Star Wars ones. Quake, Quake 2, New Tetris, and Wipeout 64. So those are all the ones I put as a maybe. Oh, and one that I skipped over because I kind of want to talk about it a little bit. They could do Ocarina of Time Master Quest. Would be interesting. Because I'm pretty sure we got that as a GameCube when they did the pre-order thing with Wind Waker, and you got the discs for the older Zelda games. One of the discs was a Master Quest for Ocarina of Time that was based off a Nintendo 64 build. Most people know it from the 3DS version of Ocarina of Time, where it was on the 3DS game as well, but they don't need to use the 3DS build. There's already a Nintendo 64 build of this game, which was apparently developed for the 64 disk drive, which we never got over here. So they just put it on that GameCube thing. Anyway, just wanted to get that out there. So I think it would be cool if they put the Master Quest on.
Yeah, that would be cool. I went through like those as well, and like I went through like, is there any like disk drive that wanted to add, but yeah, nothing really is there. This middle category, I'm a bit surprised, Kevin. So I guess let's go. Which games would you move to the? Which games out of here are you think are most likely? Most likely out of the maybe category. Are you following us,
Okay.
listeners?
I know what you mean. I think out of this category, the ones we'll see soonest would be Beetle Adventure Racing, because I don't think there's a whole lot of licensing there. You got to work your way around. And it's another one that's a cult classic, and it was like super well reviewed. It's a game that people have a lot of nostalgia for. Bomberman 64. I think they put Bomberman on everything. So I don't think they're trying to protect Bomberman too much. And I personally would like Bomberman Hero because that's one I never got to play. And it's one of those, both of the sequels to Bomberman 64 are those games that are like kind of expensive now. So yeah, my top three would be, I think we'll see Beetle Adventure Racing. I think we'll see Bomberman 64. Tough pick for a third one. Chameleon Twist or Buck Bumble. So I technically picked four. But yeah, those are the four I'd say are most likely out of this selection.
I think I don't know if I can do three. Okay, so I do. I think Perfect Dark will come at some point. And I think because that would be huge. That
Absolutely.
like that would be a huge announcement. I mean, you could just imagine like they could just like people would buy that game again. I think like they could just like re-release it. Um,
They did, I
I
think. Didn't they do like a remake?
I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did. But they could do it again. They could do it again. Um,
They're
I
doing I
would.
just did a quick Google and apparently there's a reboot in the works. The first thing I got was Perfect Dark, everything we know so far, all the details on the Perfect Dark reboot from Crystal Dynamics. So apparently they're working on that.
Did did you include Mega Man 64 on your list? I think
Yeah, it's in the
that's
maybes.
well, you know, I mean, but I think that's
Oh, I didn't
pretty
put it on the
likely.
likelies, but I would like to
Yeah,
see that. The only thing I don't like about that is and I know nobody cares about this, but just from my point of view is it would kind of bum me out because Mega Man 64 is just an inferior version of Mega Man Legends. It's not as good as the PlayStation version.
right. I think Gex is a good pick. I was surprised to find like how popular that game was worldwide,
Hmm.
um,
I
and
had
not
Enter the Gecko. I still have Enter the Gecko. I think I have Gex 3 as well, but I've never played it.
yeah. But yeah, I think Earthworm Jim 3D is likely. I think Paperboy is likely, although we don't have the NES one. But still okay, whatever. I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't even know Castlevania. I mean, I could see us having another Tetris game. Wipeout 64. I think Wipeout 64 should be moved up to most likely. Actually, I think Wipeout 64 will definitely be on the service at some point.
You know what? I'll agree. I'm going to move that right now. It's
Uh,
it is definitely a more than likely. You know what's funny is a lot of the most likelies are racing games. We got a lot of racing left to
yeah.
add to the Nintendo 64.
Well, it's agreeable, and I think that's a really good selling point with these like extra cloud based like online games. Like, which ones can you play on with your friends easily? Which ones can you pick up? And it just seems like if you have
Hmm.
like a racing game or a beat 'em up or a shooter or something, like just games that are easy. Oh, also too, like we already have Quake 1 and 2 on the Switch. If we didn't, I would say
Oh, I didn't
100%.
know that. Okay, so I want to move that down to unlikely because I don't want to get too far ahead, but a lot of the games that I have in the probably not category are there because they're already like for sale on the eShop. So I'm going to move them down.
Yeah, yeah. Quake 1 and 2 have quite good ports. I have difficulty playing any like Quake or Doom type game, but I think you can even use the the sensor, or you can use the Joy-Con and actually point and shoot. I think, um, but but yeah, if it wasn't, I would say I would actually like move it in the other direction. So I, I I like this one. I think there's a number of them that we could see, and also we don't know like is it like the online service in like 5 years? Like we really don't know like how long they're going to be adding um just
Well,
games.
that's why I think a lot of these are. That's why the maybe pile to me is like the biggest pile because I do think their goal is to keep this going as long as the next system is out too. And like we said in our Switch 2 episode, I think they're going to add some channels. Like they're probably going to add like TurboGrafx 16, maybe even Sega Saturn if we can dream, stuff like that. But they'll still be adding Nintendo 64 games for a while.
Yeah, and I got a fun GameCube rumor for you guys. That's next. But
So yeah, let's get into the probably not. Games we're probably not going to see on the Switch Online service, at least in my opinion. So I'll start with the ones that I just said. So Turok 2, and Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, Doom 64 as well. These four games are all being sold right now on the eShop as like independent like re-releases of their original games. So I don't think they're going to end up on Switch Online just because they're trying to get you to buy the remake they just made. So Turok 2, Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, and Doom 64. And then I'd group in Turok 3 and Turok Rage Wars just because I don't see them. Those nobody played those games. And if they're going to put them out, they're going to put them out as a remake, not as a Switch Online game. You said Quake and Quake 2 are for sale. I didn't know that. Also, probably nots are the 3 Tony Hawk Pro Skater games, just because of a million reasons, music rights, and they're popular games. I don't think they'll show up.
Re-releases are for sale.
Re-releases are for sale, that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
I don't know why I put these down here, but the 3 Army Men games, I just feel like they don't have any interest in that franchise anymore. But you got Army Men Sarge's Heroes, Army Men Sarge's Heroes 2, Army Men Air Combat. I don't see those coming. And then you've got Mission Impossible, which, it's a movie tie-in game. Resident Evil 2. I just feel like the series doesn't have any interest in being on Switch Online. It's doing its own thing. New Adventures is the Adventures of Superman, or as most people call it, Superman 64. You know what? I almost want to put that one in maybe. Like they might put it on as like a troll.
Yeah, do it, Nintendo.
Give us Superman
Let
64.
Educate the children. like let them learn about and like just and do the typical Nintendo thing. Port it and just don't change anything about it. Like port it in the worst way possible, like you usually do. Just don't do anything to it.
Spider-Man licensing nightmare, not going to happen. Mickey's Speedway, which is a Mickey Mouse kart racer, not going to happen. Any wrestling game with licensing, like I keep seeing people demand those get put on there, but I really think like there's a huge knot to untangle with. I think some of those like individual wrestlers have like deals set up to be in those games, and like you'd have to like negotiate with them too, and I think it's just a nightmare. Same goes for sports games like NFL Blitz and NBA Jam. I don't know. Like there are some sports games on there, but they're like the generic sports games, It seems like they're deliberately avoiding stuff like this.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, NBA Jam. I'm not sure. NFL Blitz would be difficult. Wrestling is extremely difficult now. I mean, I would love it. Like, I would love
Oh,
to
I
have.
recognize there's
Yeah,
definitely a huge audience for it. It's
yeah.
just like it seems like we would have seen at least one of them by now if it were
There,
possible.
there's so many issues. Like there. I mean, there's issues like that just from this week in wrestling. If you know, because wow, like I, a lot of things have come out, and they're going to be going through a huge transition with optics and everything, and that would be way way down on the list. Yeah, that company is going to be that company's going to be in trouble. But anyways, we are
Yeah.
a Nintendo podcast.
And then there's one
Uh,
more, one more I put on the list
yeah.
that you definitely will appreciate, but I think it would be really cool. I don't think they're going to do it, but I think it would be really cool if they put Animal Forest, which was the Nintendo 64 version of Animal Crossing that was released in Japan. But I don't know enough about it. I don't know if it even had an English option. So it would be like a lot of Japanese text. It's a very text heavy game. So I don't know, but I think it would be cool if they put Animal Forest on there.
I think it would be super cool. But I think it would be more likely that like they would just wait for like the GameCube to come around, either with an
Yeah.
online service or when that generation comes around, and sell it. Because like they have to translate it, and they would just have to really take in consideration, do they want to put that game out there? Because they changed Animal Crossing a lot. Just this is just one of the examples. Like the the GameCube one is really really mean, and they changed it because you know certain parents were complaining that these games were bullying their children.
Does
Not
the
me. I
Switch
loved it.
does
You know.
the Switch Animal Crossing, because I actually haven't played that one. Does it have that like globe effect to how you walk like New Leaf does? You know what I'm talking about?
Um.
So like the original Animal Crossing that it was probably the Animal Crossing I put the most hours into. It was more like a Zelda where it was like each screen was like flat ground, but Animal Crossing New Leaf on the DS, it was like a globe. Like it like there was a curvature to the ground and you could like see stuff come into frame. And I think the Wii one had that as well.
Um. Well, the Switch one's on the island, and it's not separated by by frames, like of course like how it was like on the GameCube and
No,
on
but
the DS. But
the DS one isn't separated by screens either.
okay, well, but
I actually,
I don't.
the reason it's on my mind is I started a new town recently on the 3DS one rather than spend money on the Switch one because I'm like, I'm in an Animal Crossing mood. They're all basically the same game anyway. So I'm just going to play New Leaf.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I'm looking at
Um,
it and it looks like it has a slightly like a less dramatic one, but it looks like it is the horizon does kind of dip off in the distance.
yeah, yeah,
It's not as dramatic as it is on the DS though.
because such a big focus on the new one was the terraforming.
I think
Was
they
the
I think at some point they shifted the perspective a little bit more down and that's why it's curved like that.
mhm,
Um like I think if I remember correctly the first one on GameCube the camera was like more above you, not directly
right,
above you but more than this. I think
right,
that's what caused it.
and Wild World is to me feels a lot like that, where it's directly above you, and to me the character always feels like faster because you're so small on the screen.
Uh-huh.
Um, to me like Wild World is like such a beautiful game, but to like in my opinion looks so rough when you like look back at it. It's one of the games where you look at it and you're like, that looked good at some point, you know. So I think for a lot of reasons, I think it would be very unlikely. But I think the biggest reason would be that Nintendo would have to make like a huge effort, and at that point, like perhaps just consider re-releasing the GameCube one, and because they could make it a little bit nicer, which would be too bad
I
because
would
yeah, I
totally
mean,
play a re-release of the original with like online support.
yeah, yeah, and I hope that just I hope for the future of Animal Crossing that just like the dialogue regressed, which is not how it's supposed to go. And again, like I know people have their qualms about the possibility of AI, but I think Animal Crossing could really use something like that where you actually you feel like you have just more of a connection, and not oh, if you talk to one perky villager, you've talked to all of the perky villagers, or like it's just not based on the archetype. Yes. So I digress. So you had basically, I'm gonna say 20 21 games on the probably not. Are there any that you would move into the maybe?
Um I don't know, Resident Evil 2 I could see as more of a maybe cuz you never that's one like you never know. Same thing with like I said they could decide to be funny and release Superman 64. Other than that, I think the rest are almost definite no's. Like I said, Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, they're selling that on the eShop. They're not going to give it to you with Switch Online. Same thing with Turok 2, Doom 64. they're selling those games, so they don't want you to actually get them.
I don't know. I don't know about the future. Like, what if they were like, all right, like just like just to like promote like their online service. What if they like started like, all right, you can play this game for like a month, and then we take it away. You know, like or like okay, like to celebrate Tony Hawk's Pro Skater for some reason. Here's Pro Skater 3, but
I
you
think
can
they
play for a
have
limited
removed
time.
games from the service. I could be wrong about that. But I remember that coming up with GoldenEye is people wondering if it was going to be like a temporary edition.
It's something. I mean, something I would like to see because I think we're going to see a big transition with the online service and a big expansion too as well. But I would like to see them have like one Switch game available for the online service. Like whether it was like okay, like if you have the expanded, you could have Mario Kart or you can have Smash
Oh,
Brothers for
I
free.
was wrong. I did a quick search. They have not removed any games yet. But I remember that being speculation with GoldenEye, like I said.
They could,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's always there. I mean, I don't know about PlayStation, but Game Pass is constantly removing
Yep.
and then adding, and then again, and then after you buy, they'll like remove it, and then you buy the game, and then they put it back on the system, and you're like, well, why? You know, like, can I have my refund? Like, I haven't even played it yet. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I would like to see. I would like to see like not go like the DLC route because that kind of I just don't like that model. You know,
Mhm.
I'd like to make the online service a little bit more. I like to make it make sense just a little bit more. And I wish they would just have like it could even be like the tabletop games or whatever it might be. Like put one new game on the online service is I guess how I would end this segment.
And yeah, so we've got two quick news and rumor stories here to, you know, put out into the podcast before we get into our spotlight game because I don't have a whole lot to say about that game. But the news story, I saw this too. You added it in that Omdia analysis says Switch 2 launching this year with 8-inch LCD screen. More information has emerged from Bloomberg today about the potential successor to the Nintendo Switch, which is yet to be formally announced by Nintendo. They are reporting that Omida analysis Hiroshi Hayashi says that the next generation Switch 2 system is indeed coming this year, and it will support an 8-inch LCD screen rather than an OLED, presumably to keep Nintendo's profit margins up for the system. I mean, I think we've talked about this already on the podcast. I think it's obviously a tactic that Nintendo uses where they're going to put the first one out as an LCD, and 2 years in, maybe even a year in, they're going to release an OLED model. And they're going to make you buy this system 4 times, just like they tried to do with the Switch. I mean, I still have my original Switch, but I know there's people out there who have bought a Switch, an OLED Switch. What's the little mini Switch called that like doesn't
Switch Lite.
talk? Was it?
Switch
What is it?
Lite.
Light,
Switch
yeah,
Lite.
Switch Lite. Sorry, I was blanking on that. So yeah, the Switch Lite, like they put out all the different models. That's what they're gonna do with the Switch too. It's obvious.
Everything on this report goes right along with what we saw coming out of Taiwan.
Yep.
Same screen size, LCD, not OLED. Price point is meant to be lower than the competitors, and with the plans to make up in software sales and to make it more competitive for people who want a cheaper system. Uh, I think so. I'm bummed it's not OLED. I know why it's not OLED. It's the same reason why they will not give us more internal storage, most likely. Uh, and but by I want to say like 8-inch LCD because it's a bigger screen, LCD, hopefully no bezels, and 120 hertz. I I think it could look. I think it could look really really good. I think it could look very, very good. I mean, OLED of course is better, but when I play like on my Steam Deck now, I mean, I'm usually not thinking about it too much, even though Steam Deck has now released an OLED model.
I think Nintendo's going to have to announce something soon before all the leakers just leak the actual system because it feels like it's getting closer every day.
Yeah, I I want to add a prediction, and I wish I would have done this. But I've been thinking about it a lot since our prediction episode.
Okay.
Um, I think Nintendo is going to release an upgraded. I don't know if it's going to be called Pro Controller, but it's basically I think they're going to, along with the system, release something with haptic feedback. I think that's the gimmick we're going towards with this new system. They use haptic feedback in the DualSense PlayStation controllers, although I don't really know how much
What
it's
is haptic feedback again?
like just the way I don't know, but it's the way like they use like the rumble system inside of the controller.
Oh, so it's
Like
like
for
the HD rumble feature that they
yeah, yeah,
talk
for
so much
example,
about.
like think about like us going back to like sort of like the Wii era with how like everything like kind of like you touch and you interact with has a certain feeling like in your hands. I'm
Yep.
not a PlayStation guy. I've never played around with a DualSense controller, but I could see Nintendo releasing $400 system, a few one big launch title, a few small ones like Arms 2 or 3-4 Switch or whatever it might be called, but then release an 80 or $100 upgraded Pro controller that has haptic feedback that you can use specifically with the new 3D Mario game. So in the new 3D Mario game, like for example, like you're spraying water or something, and you can like feel the hose like in your hands as you use a controller. Now you could just use a regular controller, but for another $80, and well, you probably need another controller anyways. I That's my prediction, Kevin. I think that's the gimmick. I think that's the way Nintendo makes up for their money. I think that's what they'll go towards. Is that because they need something fun. Like they're always tempted by like the IR sensors or like the 3D or the VR or like just something.
Well, that kind of leads into the rumor we have here about how Nintendo has registered a few trademarks having to do with button layouts of the Nintendo GameCube controller. So a lot of people are thinking that GameCube's coming to Switch Online, which I don't think is the conclusion to draw here. I mean, they've put GameCube controllers out before. They're definitely putting more GameCube games out on the Switch. Like, we've still got Thousand Year Door coming. We've got the Pikmin games. We've got Metroid Prime. I think it's just that they plan to release more GameCube games, not necessarily as Switch Online games, though.
So, for people not familiar, in the UK, they trademarked three different, I'm gonna say, designs, but they basically on the three photos of the GameCube controllers. A couple of them look like the outlines that you would see when like you're on the Switch Online service on like the pause menu or whatever when you're connecting your controller. So many have speculated that. Um, I'm with you, Kevin. I said most likely that they just are re-registering their trademarks just so no one else picks it up.
There's that
Um,
too. I remember forever Sega would constantly re-register Dreamcast stuff, and every single time it would lead to rumors on the internet. Oh, Sega just re-registered their trademark for Dreamcast, so Dreamcast 2 is definitely coming. Like
right,
it happened all the time.
right. No, I do think it's less likely, but like I think it could be possible that they are going to release games like Wind Waker, and they're going to plan on releasing more of the GameCube controllers.
Hey, it's my
So
all-time favorite controller, so I'm all for it. And if they release a Wind Waker like limited edition controller, I'll be there day one, pre-ordered.
uh, and I think least likely, but still possible, is that they do slowly start to add GameCube games on the online service, and maybe that is like the new thing with the new system. And they're not it's not saying that you have to release like a lot. You could release one game at a time. Just something something extra. Like I could see Nintendo wanting to add something extra day one with with a new system. So it's fun. It's fun. I think it's nothing, but it's fun to speculate. And I'll just add now that I just finished the Lost Woods, the Forbidden Forest, the Lost Woods in Wind Waker, and I'm having a blast. Um, that game is awesome.
That game is art.
Yeah, I don't know what this year in Nintendo is going to look like, but man, if we have any extra time to do some Zelda this year, man, um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
definitely want to write some bonus episodes for Zelda. I actually started a document. I think this is going to take me like a year, so don't hold your breath. But I definitely want to do a bonus episode that I record myself, or maybe even with a discussion. But it's going to require a lot of notes where I'm going to fully break down the Zelda timeline, everything that works about it, everything that doesn't work about it. Um, I've got like a little bit of a structure going in what I've written. I just need to do a lot of research, but I definitely want to do one about the Zelda timeline for sure.
well, just with Wind Waker, I have a lot of thoughts about the timeline and just overall, like just per- the evolution of some of these games and some of these mechanics in them. But
I
that's a
even
much
thought of
bigger
doing it in 3 sections as like 3 episodes. One where I break down the timeline, one where we do a podcast where we discuss it afterwards, and then one episode where I do like a in summary. And I'm like, okay, in summary, this game works in the timeline if if you ignore this game works if that like literally break down each one and say how it fits.
right. Right. I have, yeah, just with this one game, I have lots of thoughts just on that. That's a much bigger topic. Perhaps perhaps it's for the Patreons. You know, whenever we start that.
Who knows?
Should we talk about this weird game?
Yeah, so this week we played Devil World on the NES. So there's the Devil World music. Yeah, it came out October 5th, 1984 in Japan. And oh wait, no, sorry, this is for the last game we played. I didn't update the release date, I guess. So let me get that real quick.
I don't. I don't have it up.
I got it right here. Devil World came out October 5th. No, that was right. I did. Okay. So it came out October 5th, 1984 in Japan, and it came out July 15th, 1987 in Europe. That's why I thought I was wrong, because I wrote USA. But anyway, came out in Europe, did not come out in USA for... Okay, so this is something I wanted to talk about. So the Nintendo seal of quality didn't allow you to use religious symbols, and obviously there's crosses galore in this game. But I always thought it was interesting, like, the original Legend of Zelda, he has a shield with a cross on it. It's not, there's crosses all over Castlevania. So like there are games with crosses. I don't know if they got more lenient on it over time, but I feel like they could have easily just changed the cross to a sword or even like a vertical straight line, change the Bibles to, you don't even need to change the Bibles, just say that they're a spell book, and you could have released this game.
Yeah, I don't know the motivation behind it. And it's almost like it's almost like they were just very persistent with this idea of like, it's almost like this is what we're gonna do. Like, we gotta have the devil. We gotta have the devil in. We gotta have the crosses in it. And I'm jumping ahead a bit, but of course, like this plays into the fact that this is Miyamoto's first console game, you know, and the fact that, you know, he became such a big person in like Nintendo history, but then started out developing a game that wasn't even allowed. I mean, it was released in Europe. It was only released in Scandinavia. So yes, it was released in Europe, but it, like, there were parts of Europe where it wasn't even allowed to be released in. So
it's a very
odd,
weird game. Like, the part that I thought was weirdest about it, so it's a Pac-Man clone for anyone who hasn't played it. Even though they claim they hadn't played Pac-Man when they made this game. So I don't know how true that is, but
what?
Yeah.
How can Miyamoto came from the arcade world? Like,
yeah, exactly. It
would be irresponsible for Miyamoto to say, "I've never played Pac-Man." That would be.
I don't remember where I saw that fact, but I saw it when I was looking up stuff about this game, and they claimed that, you know, the similarities were unintentional and they hadn't yet played Pac-Man or something like that.
I hate things like that. I just like, just because you heard a song on the radio, or like it got into your mind somehow, it doesn't mean like that you copied it.
But what makes this different is the screen like scrolls. So there's a devil at the top of the screen because it's Devil World, and he will point in various directions, and as he points, the screen will move, and you have to move with it as you gobble your dots, and you get like a little cross that's a shield, and you get eventually you get Bibles, and you got to collect a certain amount of dots to clear a level. And the screen scrolling is kind of the gimmick here, because you can get stuck and die. You can, you know, end up in an area where you already got all the dots, so you just have to avoid the enemies at this point. It's really what makes the game stand out, but I don't know if it makes the game good. You know what I mean?
I quite enjoyed it, and like I was surprised with how much it's not a Pac-Man clone. I just thought, okay, it's gonna be Pac-Man, but actually, like, the different ideas they incorporated into it, especially the one with the Bibles, I really enjoyed.
It definitely has the feel of a black box Nintendo NES game. Like, it definitely is one of those games that's like one step above an Atari game. You know what I mean? Like, they hadn't quite gotten to the level they would get to yet with games like Castlevania.
I found like the second level where you have to put the Bibles and you have to like connect it all together. I found that to be like pretty satisfying, and made me think like, well, of course this predates Zelda, but it felt like I was playing a Zelda game and I'm like putting this puzzle together, you know, and you know, parts of it felt good. It's just that like no part of it is like cute and like fluffy and like really like draws me in. Like I can see like why they like did this game, and then they were like, that's it, you know, like it just never, I guess it just never really took off. So I don't know, like I'm not a Pac-Man expert. Did this game remind you of any other game specifically?
I mean, other than other Pac-Man clones, not really, but I don't even remember specifically what Pac-Man clones I've played. It just like, it's definitely just like arcade style, very basic, um, video game. Like, it might as well just be called video game. Not that I didn't like it. It's just, I don't know. I wasn't blown away by it either. This is very vanilla, like very, like I said, you could put the words video game on the box to me.
Oh, again, since you're also older than me, and any excuse to talk about Zelda, do you remember what was there controversy around the Manji dungeon in the original Legend of Zelda, which of course is.
We grew up in a different time where there wasn't really controversy back then. Like, what you would do is you'd notice that it kind of resembled a swastika, and people would say, like, isn't that crazy? Like that's about as far as the controversy got, because obviously we didn't understand what it was supposed to be. And we would just be like, dude, that's crazy. Like, like that's the extent of what controversy was to us growing up.
It's still like of course, like, it's not backwards. I always say that it's counterclockwise, which isn't accurate either. But of course, it's a Buddhist symbol, and of
Inverted,
course, like,
maybe.
Yeah, like, whatever you call it. Maybe it's the right direction. I'm kind of touching on. I'm gonna move on. Is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I mean, if you go to Buddhist temples, this is a symbol that I see all the time. It sticks out. It sticks out to me when I see it first. But then of course, it's a temple. I know what it is. But still, it was still a decision that Nintendo made deliberately to add a Buddhist symbol in it, and like you said, like Zelda, Castlevania.
I think it's different in the Master Quest, and for whatever that's worth, I don't know if that means anything, but I think that's one of the dungeons that the layout is different in the Master Quest.
Really?
I think they all are, but I don't know. I think that's like the point of the Master Quest, but I don't know. It's been a while since I've done that. I think I've said this story on the podcast before, but the Master Quest was actually how I grew up with Zelda, because I learned that trivia fact. It was like that thing that you talk about on the playground where, like, oh, did you know if you make your file name Zelda in all capitals, you can start on the second quest? And it's like, I didn't understand what a second quest was. I didn't know that the difficulty was higher. I just knew it was a secret, so I wanted to do it. And every time I played the game, I would do it, and I started on the second quest, and that's like how I remember Zelda.
Right. Huh. That I didn't know. That's interesting. Well, I have an Easter egg that I included in our notes. I think this is really cool. So the devil in Devil World is included as an assist trophy in Smash Brothers Brawl, which I think a lot of people remember him as, like, because it's really the only other place it comes up in, like, Nintendo history. The one I didn't know, which I think is super cool, is that a trophy of Tamagon can be included in Melee through the use of action replay, which I think is an absolute crazy Easter egg. The fact that, like, you can only find Tamagon if you use action replay on
that's
Melee.
Weird.
Like, you can't even get it in the base game. Like, I think it's weird, but I just think it's kind of cool. I never ever knew that until I researched it. And yes, this is the only black box game we did not get in the US. We got 30 black box games in the US, and so far, well, Kevin, you and Sean have reviewed. Well, no, you've reviewed 5 of them, I'll say. We've reviewed 5 so far on the podcast. This one, baseball, Donkey Kong Jr., Ice Climbers, and pro wrestling. So we're getting there.
All right, and speaking of the review, let's talk about where we rank this guy. So, Devil World to me, it's towards the bottom of games that I liked, but it didn't push into that barrier of I'm never going to play this again. But it's like right near that border. It's like something where I'm like, I could see myself maybe playing this again someday. So, right there, I put it right above Sin and Punishment, which I think is the border. And I think I like this a little more than Sin and Punishment. And it's below F-Zero X, which I also may or may not play again someday. So that puts it at number 30 on the list.
Mine was number 30 as well. I didn't crazy. Look. I didn't look, but yeah, I put it right above Dig Dug 2, which we just did, and below Lucia, Comic Zone, Golden Axe. This is not a game. I don't think this is a game that I'll play again, but it's a game that I do think is a lot of fun. I had fun with it too. That's why I put it. I'm like, maybe someday I'll play this again. Yeah, it just doesn't really have anything for me. But on the bright side,
at that point of the list, it's almost like I'm not opposed to playing this again.
Yeah, there's a big group of games that I would call like if you were over at your buddy's house and was like, you want. Actually, Devil World, we didn't even include that. Devil World is a multiplayer game, which I do think is pretty cool. But anyways, I would recommend this for retro fans, Pac-Man fans, people who are interested in playing PAL Nintendo games, like just interested in playing retro games that were never available, or just Miyamoto fans in general, because it is part of the history.
I'll tell you who does not recommend it is Sean, because even though he's not here this week, he did rank it, and he ranked it dead last on his list. He put it all the way at the bottom.
I'm sure that has nothing to do with him not being here. I'm joking.
He did not like this game. Maybe he'll put his 2 cents in next week. And you can tune in next week and hear him do his 2 cents. But that is all we have for this week, I believe.
Well, what are we playing next week?
Oh, yeah, good call. Yeah, sometimes I almost forget to do that. Let's spin that randomizer. Okay, next week we are playing a key game, you could say, in video game history. Possibly the most important game of all time. I don't know. We're playing Super Mario Brothers for the NES. So epic. After this, I was thinking about this the other day. So now that we're playing this, we only are missing one game, Super Mario World. And I think when we draw Super Mario World that week, we need to do 2 games. We need to review Super Mario World and Super Mario All-Stars, because at that point we will have done every game that's in All-Stars.
Okay. And then we're done.
And then we're done with Super Mario, I think. Maybe not Mario in general, because there's still like Mario Golf and stuff, but we're done with Super Mario at that point.
Oh, okay. Well, Kevin. I mean, for you, it's number. Mario Brothers 2 is number 7. Mario Brothers 3 is number 9.
Well, just because I think this might be the most important game of all time doesn't mean that I'm going to rank it that way. Like, this is still like my personal list, but we'll see. We'll see how it ranks. We did do Super Mario World, huh? So I guess
that was part of the 3. Like, we just did it all at the same time.
So we should probably next week now. Maybe this was the one I was holding out for. Yeah. So next week we should also review Super Mario All-Stars now that we've got them all. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Yeah, okay, easy enough. Perfect. Let's do it.
So we'll do both. We'll do Super Mario Brothers, and since, there's not a whole lot we can say that has not already been said about, like, literally one of the most popular games of all time, we will also review Super Mario All-Stars and talk about how I was bummed that they re-released it with Super Mario World, even though I already own Super Mario World, so I don't know why I cared so much. Anyway, thank you all for listening. If you have some Nintendo 64 games you want to see on Switch Online that we've completely forgot to bring up, let us know. If you have thoughts on Super Mario All Stars, if you have thoughts on Devil World, if you have thoughts on GameCube games, if you have thoughts about anything related to Nintendo, email us at nintendotherapypod@gmail.com. We've got I'm not using X or Twitter anymore. I'm not doing that. We got Nintendo Therapy on Reddit. We got Nintendo Therapy on Threads. I've been using that in place of X this week. What else we got? We got places you can get a hold of us. Just if you're listening on Spotify, you can comment on the episodes now. Comment there and let us know what we forgot for Nintendo 64. And as always, keep in mind, we're Nintendo fans, not Nintendo experts. So if you want to correct us on something, do that too. And we will see you back here next week for lots of Mario talk, lots of Nintendo talk, lots of therapy talk. Bye-bye.